welcome to the Heartification podcast, where I interview people on how art has affected their lives and what it means to them. Art has a very special place in my life. It not only makes me feel happy, but it allows me to make others feel special. This podcast is all about how art has made an impact on others' lives, for all ages, all backgrounds, and all walks of life. You can find more about this podcast guest in my show notes. Without further ado, let's welcome my next guest. She is a nutritionist, elite trainer, life coach, model, and cancer survivor. Please welcome my next guest, Jill Bunny.
Thank you so much for having me. And first off, I just want to congratulate you on everything that you are doing for your local community. And honestly, an entrepreneur at 13 years old? Because
Yes.
I was reading about you. Wow, I'm impressed.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for doing this.
This, I would never have it any other way. It's a great way to spend a Friday, and I'm super excited to hear all the listeners and how they enjoy our talks. So you can fire any questions you got. Hopefully I can answer them.
Yeah, well, the first question I always ask is, how do you define art?
Wow, that's a good question right off the bat. And thinking about how I would define art, I would say it's just a way that we express ourselves. It's a really creative way. And the way I would define art and see art might be very different from you and probably vastly different than my other friends and family members. But I just think it's a creative way that we, again, can express ourselves and how we feel.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with you. Like, my definition is any form you're able to express yourself and let out your emotions.
Oh, well, that's deep. I'm going to write that one down after.
And what art forms are you exposed to?
I think art's around us, wherever we look, wherever we choose to see or hear, right? So I consider music one of them. I'm heavily into anything and everything other than punk rock. I love classical. I love Disney music. I love modern. So I just love connecting to music. And I think we all do in some same way, some form. I also love visual arts. So growing up back in school, and I mean, that was a very, very long time ago. I am 34. But back then I loved art class. So whether it was painting or doing pottery, I loved pottery. So that is another form that I enjoy. And I feel like I need to get back into it just by you asking me that question. And then obviously photography is a big one as well, being a model. That I do think that is a form of art.
Yeah, definitely. That's amazing. And what inspired you to turn from a professional athlete to a mental health advocate?
Mm-hmm. So obviously sometime or another, our athleticism might go. And obviously I am only 34, but going through some illness. And I think that we'll probably talk about that a little bit later in the podcast. I couldn't express myself as an athlete, which I think is also art. Being a fitness competitor, I sculpted my body and my physique, and I still wanted to be in the fitness industry. And I didn't know where I kind of fit until I went down a really difficult path from depression, anxiety, going through cancer, which we will talk about. And I wanted to inspire fitness professionals and athletes and women to see health and fitness in different ways. And one of it is mental health. And although I can't be an athlete, I find that is a huge component to our lives, and found my new journey in fitness, which is centered around mental health.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And so you were diagnosed with thyroid cancer at the age of 30. And I can imagine that was extremely difficult. So was there a particular form of art that helped you through that situation?
I think I targeted many forms, if I'm being honest. And I didn't think of it until we chatted a little bit. I looked at your website and you sent me a few questions to ponder on. And thinking back, that was in 2016. One of them would have been music, and it's just a way to soothe my soul. And it was listening to other people's lyrics and how they express themselves made me feel that I wasn't alone. And I think music has a really good capability of doing that. And during my cancer treatment, Obviously, you're not always allowed your phone with you. So I ended up having pieces of paper and I would doodle and sketch. And what I ended up doing was loving abstract art. And I don't really show that on social media. I find that we have different creative outlets, and sometimes it's personal. We don't have to share it with the world. And going through the cancer, my body changed. So I put on quite a bit of weight. I felt like my identity was being lost as an athlete, and I wasn't quote unquote perfect. None of us are perfect if you're listening to this. And, when I started to draw, which obviously I did in school, I didn't think it was good enough. And I'm like, oh, these lines aren't crisp enough, or this could be better. And then I just started blotting stuff down, getting paint and just throwing it on a canvas. And that's how I just started to learn how to be imperfect and its beauty of its own. So, yes, I did some visual arts. I wonder if anyone would buy it.
Yeah,
Probably not.
that's amazing. And even like it's sometimes society, is judging your art and you don't think
Hmm.
it's good enough,
Right?
but art is just what you love, and sometimes you can just like splash paint on it to form something. Like even
Hmm.
I'd talked to Carlos Delgado. He's a artist in Toronto. He sells his paintings for $10,000, and he was saying that he was at a state where didn't he didn't know what to do. He didn't think his art was good enough, and he was so angry he just started, splatting paint. The next day he comes back and there's the drips of the paint, and he connects all the dots and it forms this face. And now he's selling his paintings for a lot of money. And it's just
Wow.
amazing how that painting where you just, splatted paint and then connected
Hmm.
it and it formed a body is just amazing.
And that's really helpful that you did say that. And that was a big thing, anyone listening, that, a lot of us think that unless we're this perfect artist or it's a beautiful painting, we kind of steer away. Or, when we get older, when we're younger and 5 or 6, man, I was doing art every day and crafts and thinking I was the best, right? And then when we get older, we think, oh, maybe I'm not so talented. And I definitely went through that. And just by splatting stuff on paper, it felt great and no one sees the stuff. And that was kind of my soothing journey during my cancer treatment. And I kind of want to get back to that now again. So you've really kind of sparked my creativity, girl.
That's awesome. And has art ever helped you through a different difficult situation other than your cancer?
Hmm. Again, I think it's always been with me since a child that I always loved craft projects, or it was making necklaces, whatever it was. I always kind of connected back to some sort of crafts or doodling. In class in school, if I was nervous, I would take a pen out, start doodling, probably putting little hearts, right? So I always found a piece of paper, give me a pen or something in my hand, and I can create something for myself. And it is really a nice self-care practice.
Yeah, definitely. It can even help people, calm themselves if they're having a
Hmm.
difficult day, just go and paint or do whatever form of art they do and just,
Hmm.
change their mood, calms themselves, which is really great.
I like that.
And are you attracted to any particular artist?
You ready for my answer? My
Sure. Yeah.
niece. My niece. So she's 6 years old. And when I thought of that, I'm like, I don't really have a celebrity that I turn to, or an artist, but where do I feel inspired or it fills my heart? Obviously, when you're gifted something from somebody and they really truly spent their time doing it, it's incredible. So, yes, she's 6 years old. I get cards and little paints and it's all over my house. So she is my number one artist by a landslide.
That's amazing. And are you attracted to any particular art form?
I would say performance is one of the big things, that whether it's dance, fitness competitions, movement of the body, I love that aspect. And cinematography and film, I'm definitely attracted to. And it's been a while since I've been through a museum, but my mom and I used to love to go as a kid at the ROM in Toronto. And I remember there used to be one with bones and learning about the human body, but that was back again like a decade ago. Loved that. So I love any art form and music, obviously. So,
Yeah, definitely. That's amazing.
mhm,
And so my Heartification project is all about giving back to the community, specifically to those with disabilities and illnesses. So how do you give back to the
mhm,
community?
mhm. Again, I'm amazed at what you do. And the biggest thing we can do for our community is connect to one another. I think that's the most important thing. And going through cancer and living with MS, what I like to do is go into schools or my local fitness communities and talk about mental health, but also the stigma against disabilities that a lot of people that just look at me think she doesn't have a disability. Technically, by standards, having MS, I do. Do I believe that I do in my heart? No. Is it hard to go through some days? Yes. But I realize that when we connect as a community, when we talk and we realize that we're not alone and we're all very similar and can support each other through hard times, we can get through it. So by just talking, being on here, I feel is some way helping the community. And again, if I could be part of Heartification in any way, you just call me up because I have never met somebody at your age create a non-for-profit and really helping out the community and changing the face of what art is for people to really soothe themselves.
Yeah, thank you so much. And back to what you were saying, where some people, there's like stereotypes. They'll look at someone who's a quote unquote normal and say, oh, well, they don't have a disability, but you
Mm-hmm.
don't know what they're experiencing. And the same thing with someone who does have a disability, they'll look at them and say, oh, they're not normal. They can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
Like the whole thing that inspired Hertification was when I went to India, my grandpa had shown me these postcards of people that had no arms, so they painted with their legs and their mouths instead. So people probably would have thought, oh, they can't paint if they don't have arms, but they found a way to do what they love. And those stereotypes where, oh, they can't do this, they couldn't do that. And it's the same thing with, oh, you look normal, you don't have a
Mm-hmm.
disability. You don't know the pain or the other things that people are going through. And I think it's like now society, we shouldn't have those stereotypes.
Mm-hmm. And it's people like you speaking up about that is really going to change, our judgments and stereotypes by just talking about it. And again, I am so proud and anything that I can do and anybody else listening to this, you know, we're here to support you. And I appreciate what you're doing for people with disabilities and, allowing us to be able to be part of a community.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
And how would you like people to get in touch with you?
So pretty easy. I'm going to make it easy on the listeners here. JillBunny.com. So very easy. That's a URL. And there's all the social media links galore that are on that web link. But if you just go there, you can always send me a message or read up on whatever I'm getting up to. Who knows?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, no problem at all. And again, if there's anything that I can do, you let me know. But 2021 is going to be a big year for you in Heartification.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for doing this again.
No problem.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. Remember, if you want to find out more about this guest, please go to my show notes where I have all the links needed. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe to my podcast series and help me by sharing it, leaving a rating, and a comment. I hope you join me on my next podcast. Bye for now.